Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, my name is Hilda Sofatul Huda. I'm from Kuningan University. Now, I will present a journal written by Niken Wahyu Utami, Suminto Asayuti, and Jailani Jailani. I'm very grateful to them. Now, I will present a journal about indigenous artifacts from remote areas used to design a lesson plan for pre-service math teacher regarding sustainable education. 1. Abstract. In the context of sustainable education, remote areas require special treatment. However, teachers are not evenly distributed in terms of quantity and quality. Adaptable, creative, and innovative teachers are needed in remote areas. Therefore, universities must prepare pre-service teachers to teach in this place. This study explores indigenous artifacts from local communities related to mathematical content that pre-service teachers can adopt to design lesson plans using available research. Data were collected through the artifact of indigenous people in a mountain region of on the border of Yogyakarta and Central Java, Indonesia, and the math curriculum content was examined. The relational ideas of the artifact and the math curriculum content were analyzed. Based on the result, this study showed that artifacts can be incorporated into math learning material, elaborating on the artifact and potentially relate culture and math in the classroom. The artifact contain mathematical value and are close to student thought, hence preserve math teachers can use them to design lesson plans, particularly for math learning by understanding artifacts in remote areas. Pre-service teachers will have a particular capability for preparing lesson plans relevant to student environment for sustainable education. Next, introduction. Point 1. Pre-service math teachers. Teachers are the spearhead of success in learning. Additionally, pre-service teachers are properly equipped and are agents of change who are trying to adopt the technology of indigenous knowledge during teaching and learning instructional planning. It is essential to understand the environment to accommodate student prior education and their indigenous knowledge abilities. Point 2. The math environment of indigenous communities in education. Although mathematical truth hold everywhere and for everyone, this does not mean that math education should ignore learners' individuality or the social and cultural context of education. Hence, we need to do more than merely inform learners of this truth. We can find knowledge in the social context from the indigenous community and also with math. Mathematics in learning encourages teachers and students to appreciate the diversity of knowledge. Further, Powell states that the context of community culture material influence their knowledge and activities in the world. Students learn the importance of respecting their knowledge and others, and how our cultural background can interact with mathematical knowledge development. Powell research saw examples of various forms in which mathematical knowledge can be coded differently from academic textbooks. Moreover, indigenous knowledge as material in math learning can make math interesting and valuable for underrepresented groups in increasingly diverse populations. The use in indigenous knowledge tend to boost student motivation in learning math and reduce feeling of dissatisfaction and inequity. Point 3. Pre-service math teacher lesson plan for sustainable education. We could find any result for the design of a math lesson plan for sustainable education need to be in accordance with the curriculum learning outcome and student culture. Teaching students from remote areas require collaborating with indigenous communities and designing lesson plan in accordance with their culture. Our research helped teachers, schools, and communities to implement appropriate and effective professional development, build partnership between institutes and societies, revise teaching approaches and curricula, and to value cultural heritage and aboriginal knowledge. In other world, teachers' interaction with indigenous people then to alter their perception, skill, and abilities during teaching or learning activities. Point 4. Ethic on seeking and drawing upon indigenous knowledge. We could find any result for conducting research need to follow ethics. Research involving human and animal, both experimental and social research, should use ethics. However, the commodification of indigenous knowledge is often acquired by less than ethical means. The commodification of indigenous knowledge with consent, consideration of compensation is another form of exploitation and marginalization of indigenous people. The research should protect cultural group assets, so research on indigenous knowledge requires university ethics commit approval by considering protection issue for the collective. Research that does not do so might contribute to the continued appropriation and pondering of indigenous culture, heritage, and knowledge. The next methodology. 1. Research design. Point A. Research participant. Who goes to elderly individual from the community as research participant. Additionally, according to the study purpose, we involve pre-service med teachers who are members of the indigenous community from the border of Yogyakarta and Central Java as research assistant. In addition, the indigenous community approved of the study activities. We joined on university commit approval from the Institute of Research and Community Service University PGRI Yogyakarta and Indigenous Community Agreement from Beteng Hamlet, Jatimulyo, Girimulyo, Kulon Progo. In May, the data collected. Data were gathered from the indigenous community situated at the border of Yogyakarta and Central Java, Indonesia. The area is mountain and the inhabitants have some particular indigenous artifact, namely kentongan, padasan, tapi batik, and so on. Observation was carried out to identify the artifact used, who observed it and took pictures to document the artifact. In addition, daily activities were also witnessed, while interviews were carried out to confirm the activities and object utilized by the inhabitants. During the data collection, we involved pre-survey met the teachers as research assistant. Indigenous knowledge is either in the form of daily activities, habits, or artifacts. Through the data analysis, we could find any result for a qualitative procedure is employed for data analysis. This analysis generates interpretation of data or mathematical value that exists in indigenous knowledge. The analysis is also linked to the relational ideas of the artifact and the math curriculum contents. The result of the analysis were used to develop a math lesson plan. The pre-service teacher engaged in the data analysis. And the next result. 1. Indigenous artifact and mathematical object related to them. From the picture, we can see that the room is trapezoidal in shape, truncate spherical padasan, and tube-shaped kentongan. 2. Exploring learning material from indigenous artifacts. We need to be attentive to the mathematical knowledge of indigenous people, based on the numerous examples of the artifact utilized in math learning. We quote 3 examples, namely the roof of the house, the padasan, and the kantongan. Artifact, mathematical object, and learning material derived from the ethnomathematics of the inhabitant on the border between Yogyakarta and Central Java are summarized in the next figure. Point A. Math lesson plan with roof context. Point B, math lesson plan in the Padasar context. Point C, math lesson plan in the Kentongan context. This is a figure an indigenous home on the border between Yogyakarta and Central Java, Indonesia. And the next discussion. Sustainable education in remote areas depends on the creativity of the teachers in preparing lesson plan, such as employing artifacts from indigenous communities. Additionally, preserved teachers were invited to discuss the interpretation of the artifact mathematical value and how this artifact can be used in designing lesson plans. The concept of involving in the indigenous knowledge in math learning for both trained and preserved teachers need to be included in mathematically based education courses. Examples are artifacts that are made and used in remote areas on the border between Yogyakarta and Central Java, Indonesia, such as the trapezoid of the roof, the truncated sphere, and the tube-like shape of the Padasan and Kentongan materials, respectively. 1. Limitation of this study, and 2. Recommendation for future research. And the last conclusion. Indigenous artifact may be similar to mathematical object involving preserved teachers in mathematics studies improve their capabilities for preparing lesson plans relevant to the student environment for sustainable education. This methodology developed preserved teachers education for teachers training and empowers indigenous knowledge. Further, preserved teachers who are also members of indigenous communities, which ends in understanding the mathematical value that exists in their indigenous culture. That's all I can say. Thanks for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.